Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the event of an emergency, all people may exit right or left from this room and proceed to an exit door. All doors will open from the inside. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Haledon Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in the North Jersey Record Herald News, the board's official newspaper, on January 15th, 2025 and April 23rd, 2025. Notices of this meeting indicating date, time, and place were posted publicly on the floor of the main entrance to the school and filed with the clerk in the municipality of Haledon. Roll call.
Mrs. Serna, Mr. Coletta, Ms. Quadrado, Mr. Guzman.
Here.
Mrs. Johnson. Here. Mr. Martinez.
Here.
Mr. Moxell.
Here.
Mr. Ramadan.
Here.
Here.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We heard you,
Yes.
Motez.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to absenteeism with a presentation by Mr. Waka of the chronic absenteeism CAP report.
So I'll be brief about this. Thank you, Board President Issa. I want to begin this report by discussing the CAP document for chronic absenteeism that you see listed on the agenda. So a student is identified by the state as being chronically absent if they have missed more than 10% of the possible days in a total school year. Since we have 184 students each year, since we have 184 days for a student each year, that means that if a student misses a total of 18 or 19 days, they are labeled as being chronically absent. Our average daily attendance rate for students is about 92.6%, and that is overall pretty good, all things considered, but that also means that we see each day, on average, about 75 total students that are absent. The problem that we have is that the attendance data we have shows a great level of polarization in that most students are absent just a handful of times a year. However, the students who are absent often are oftentimes absent very often. This is why we are seeing over 20% of our students in the last 2 years fall into the category of being chronically absent. This impacts us in a lot of ways. Of course, even though our test scores have gone up significantly over the past 2 years, I think it's fair to believe that our scores would have been even higher had a smaller rate of our students been chronically absent. I think the teachers do a remarkable job with the Google Classrooms, and perhaps that might lessen the learning that is lost, but I think that most of us would agree that in-person learning is a stronger learning environment, especially for young children. Just as importantly, we are penalized in our QSAC assessment of our test scores because of our chronically absent rate. This was something that several years ago was not a factor of our overall QSAC academic score rank and scores and rankings, but now it is, and our scores have been lowered because of that. The state has mandated that all schools that have had their scores lowered due to chronic absenteeism must share a corrective action plan with their boards aimed at addressing this. Therefore, districts like Clifton and Manchester, and Passaic, and Prospect Park, and Hawthorne, and Patterson, and many others in the county were instructed to create plans to address this. The data is showing us that in our youngest grades, it's that we see the highest rates of absenteeism. The pre-K through second grade cohort sees the highest rates of absenteeism, and the data we gained from the parent survey shows that illness is by far the heaviest factor for parents keeping kids at home. And I get that. We even tell parents that if their child is feeling sick, that we want to keep them home so they don't get other students sick. What is unfair, in my view, is that the entire school's test scores are penalized by this because grades pre-K, K1 and 2 they represent 40% of the grades that we offer at the Halden Public School, and these students don't take the New Jersey state tests. Another important aspect of this is that it's not uncommon for students to just move out of the district and not tell us about it until weeks later. We've had students just stop showing up, and when we call home after a certain amount of days to check in on them, we sometimes don't get anyone to pick up, or we notice the phone numbers don't work or have changed. When this happens, we still need to keep them on our roster as per the district policy and the state law for 10 days before we disenroll them. In this scenario, and this is not a terribly uncommon scenario, if a student stops showing up in November, then they would have only been able to attend school for maybe about 50 or so total days. But if we have 10 consecutive days of them being absent, before we take them off our rolls, then right there, we're going to be at least at a 10% rate and make themselves chronically absent. Another thing we see is that it's not uncommon at all for students to take trips internationally for a few weeks at a time to visit relatives. In these situations, we don't disenroll the student since we have it on good faith that they're coming back. And I understand why parents would do this. It's expensive to fly overseas, and it takes a long time to get there. So you're not just going to fly to these places for a weekend. You're going to stay for a little while, and I understand that. Now, even before we were told that we needed to make this plan, we'd already begun actively looking to try and curb this trend as the year began. And we began programs this year looking to incentivize attendance through monthly perfect attendance bulletin boards, strong attendance frozen yogurt parties, perfect attendance pizza lunches, and attendance certificates sent to students with strong attendance data. We've also, through our guidance and CST and parent liaison, begun calling parents and students with attendance issues to get insight as to why the students are home. Most of the time, illness is the stated reason. In extreme cases, we have filed charges in the Halden Municipal Court for truancy. We've done this year 3 total times. The maximum fine that can be assessed statewide for this law is $25. So the law is not very forceful on this. And in all 3 times that we tried it this year, the judge gave a warning to the parents and did not issue a fine. With that said, we are still going to keep monitoring this data, and we will look for ways to reduce the rate of students that are chronically absent moving forward. That's my report.
So Mr. Walker, I was just looking through our strategic plan. I believe that was still one of our goals, or was that one from the previous plan of working on absenteeism? Is that on this one?
I don't specifically recall seeing that as a hallmark of our most recent. I could be wrong, but I don't specifically recall seeing that.
Yeah, no, you know what? I think it wasn't, because with COVID, we did this last plan after COVID, and then we weren't really worrying about absenteeism because that was that was like a fluctuating situation. So okay, but regardless, it's something that we got audited on and by CUSAC, or we got called on by CUSAC, but as you pointed out, it was a change, and I remember that conversation at the board meeting. It was a change in the way that they were rating, and a lot of schools were affected by this. So, but in any case, we have this corrective action plan, and it forces us to pay very close attention. Which
the goal is going to be baby steps. It's going to be baby steps because it's going to be very hard to reduce chronic absenteeism, in a super high percentage in any from 1 year to the next year. But if we see progress, then we'll look to keep augmenting where we see progress.
Question, do they bring doctor notes like when they have?
So it doesn't matter why they're absent. That's a good question. So they could be absent for medical reasons. They could legitimately be sick to a point where, coming to school, it's reasonable not to come to school. They're still not here.
Right.
That's how it's measured.
And what's the state mandate, like when they're not here and if the excuse is not?
So if they're absent after a certain amount of days and there's a real medical reason, then we'll provide home instruction, and then those kids won't be part of it. But even if you gave me a doctor's note every single time your son or daughter was sick, they would still be absent,
Right.
even though it's through no fault of their own.
So it's not an excuse?
We can excuse it internally, but on the reports, we have to send to the state who was here this day and who wasn't. Whether or not we excuse it, it's not going to be relevant data for their purposes with this.
Is there a purpose, like how many days they're out? Like, I know if they're out 1 day, they don't need a note. But is it like,
So if we don't get you for 3 days in a row,
Right.
if you give us a call and let us know little Johnny's gonna be out for a while, then we know we don't have to keep checking in on you. But if no call, no shows for 3 days, then we reach out guidance after 5 days. And George will know this because he sees that we actually do this.
Yeah.
We'll request wellness visits by Hailden police officers to make sure everything's okay with the kid. We also send, if your child's been absent at 5 days, you get a letter at 8 days, at 13 days. There's certain increments that we send out notifications. And this year, for the first year, we've had our parent liaison to call parents to start dialogues about attendance. Excuse me.
And I'm assuming the number is just to keep a tally, right?
It's to keep a tally. And right now, like if you see in that document, we're sitting at about 22% now. That doesn't mean that number is going to go up or down, because there's going to be a lot more school days moving forward. And if the kids stay here, then numbers can come in our direction. But there's a whole myriad of reasons why people will keep their kids home, but we're trying to get them to come here more often.
so then the next follow-up is the last one. So if we seen this like within the last year, what's the cost for us? Like even when we send out the letters or we make a phone call, and like you said,
Mostly manpower.
some of them
probably not a
might
fiscal thing.
transfer out or whatever.
Probably the greatest cost will be, kids not being in the building, right? And the impact of what their achievement's going to be academically and socially. But as far as a fiscal cost to the district, it's probably just more manpower hours that we spend, checking in on kids than actual, budgetary items.
Madam President,
Yes.
I think Mr. Ramadan has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Ramadan.
Yeah, how you doing, folks? I'm sorry. Mr. Walker, I just have a question. With these efforts that we put in to try to combat this phenomenon or this particular issue that we have, is there a recourse for us? Because these numbers obviously add up in the calculations and impact us negatively. Do we have a recourse with the state, as far as, again, we can't control the absenteeism for sure, but do we have a recourse that it's not going to impact us negatively?
I wish we did. It's most.
On
It's
the-
up
on the
here.
You're good now.
Right here.
I think our recourse is just to advocate for ourselves, but I know there was a group of superintendents in South Jersey that had never had their scores affected by this, and they're looking to start their own lobby. But it is the state's going to want to see the kids in the building, and they're not really going to look to, or maybe Merlina can shed light, but I haven't seen them be very lenient on excuses, and I know we can't control it. But I also do think that we probably should see higher rates of attendance than we currently see.
Some
And
boards,
also,
I was gonna say, some boards have sent letters to the state asking for some help on this. Because I think it was the majority of districts in both Passaic and Bergen County had this corrective action plan. So it's rampant. The state needs to change the rules or give some kind of incentive, some other incentive or plan to make some improvement here. I don't think it's right to put on the districts. Like what you're doing is just talking about it. I don't know how to fix this.
And I do think that, the teachers, what we learned during COVID, they got so good at these Google Classrooms and preparing. So like being absent for 3 or 4 days now wasn't like it was before COVID. Like it just seems, so I think that's why you're seeing that the scores still went up, even though we're seeing this chronic absentee issue. But yeah, it's a tough spot. I agree, Jeff.
just to back up one more point, and then we'll continue. Mr. Walker, have you seen this from your the colleagues? If there's any other plans that works in their district, maybe we could adopt, or we could enhance hours in a way that we could again entice or cut down on this number.
So that's a really good question, because we were the last school in the county to do QSAC. I don't know why they booked us last, but they booked us last. So by the time all the other schools were told, hey, you have to make this corrected active plan for QSAC, I was able to, the superintendent of Patterson and Manchester and Hawthorne and Clifton, a lot of the locals in Passaic, they sent me the drafts that they had made, because we all basically kind of started this plan, this year that we got the QSAC scores, and now it's become mandatory. right now, the data is inconclusive that we're, anything we've done is making the impact we want, but it's also, it's still early and, it might be a year or two before we see the movement we want to see. But right now, I don't know how to answer that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to add one thing that I have seen in other districts. So some districts have gotten really good at disenroll. So if a student's away on vacation or sick maybe it's going to be like with COVID positive, and maybe it's going to be more than a week. Some districts are in the practice now of disenrolling the student, providing materials at home instruction, but actually disenrolling them off the roster, so not to get penalized. And when they get back or get back into the country, then they'll put them back in enroll them again. I'm not sure that's what the state's intent, but that's what some districts are doing.
Yeah,
too.
I've heard that too, and I've been reluctant to want to, like, I understand the superintendents that have advocated for that. But I personally, I don't want to go there unless we have to do that, because I want a kid to always feel that they're still part of us, right? Like, I don't want them to even sense that they're disenrolled and they don't matter. But I also understand why districts have done that.
I guess if it were to become really extreme, that would be like a consideration, but I agree, it seems negative to disenroll students, so
Yeah,
we didn't have
I'd rather
to
not
do
have to
that.
get there.
I mean, and I agree. I mean, coming right now, I'm teaching culinary, right? And I have wide span of kids that come, and a lot of kids don't show up for 2 weeks. And the grade that I give them is the grade that it is. If you don't complete your tests and your exams, but then you get emails where, can we let them make up the work? Can we let them do this? Can we let them do that? So then, and that's just culinary. So my biggest factor is, are they really learning? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're just gonna give them a test. We're gonna help them out. They go from an F from not being there to a D, and they didn't pass. So it's just understanding, but that's absenteeism, because they go away, they go to their country, they out there for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, for whatever it is, but then they come back and there's more pressure on the educators.
Have you noticed, I mean, I imagine that there would be a correlation between students who are absent a lot and lower grades or failing subjects? Yeah,
and I think nationwide, I think you see data support that. I don't have the specific data for Hailed in public, but the kids you see here every day. It just the eyeball test. It seems like they're a little more prepared for what's coming their way.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on, Ms. Augustin will give our business administrator will give the final budget presentation.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. So this presentation is going to be a collaboration between myself and the superintendent. I will start off the first couple of slides. He will talk about, Mr. Walker will talk about the curriculum, then I will talk about the financial effects on the district with the goals that we set forth. Okay, so we're gonna pull it up on the screen. Bill's gonna help me out with this. And we're gonna try to do a full screen, and I'll let Bill know when to go to the next slide, right? Okay. All right, so next slide. All right, so the budget process. So the budget process goes on for quite a few months. It's a lot of collaboration between myself, the superintendent, the administrators. They talk to their staff members to find out what is working this year, what do we need to do next year, what should we pivot and go in another direction. So that starts early, October, November, December, the conversation. Then we kind of get down to the nitty gritty when we're getting closer to the end of this the year, and then around January or so, when we're meeting with the administrators, going through the line items, looking at the budget, developing it on the software, and looking where we need to make any changes. So that process happened, and we move forward to waiting for the state aid numbers. We come up with all of our expenses, and then we project how much we intend to get for the from state aid in present that preliminary budget around March. And I think that was right over, I think our meeting was March 12th. We presented the preliminary budget. And once that is presented and you guys approve that, we submit it to the executive county superintendent, the executive county BA. They do their scrutiny of it and ask questions. This year, I mentioned in our finance committee that we just had, the county BA asked a lot of fiscal questions this year. We went through a lot of detail. She wanted to make sure that districts were sound because of a lot of the impact our surrounding districts are having. She's looked into our capital projects. We had to show our long-range facility plan. She looked into our maintenance reserve. All of these items, she was very meticulous in asking and having me show proof of everything. A little bit different than what we've done in the past. So this year, they wanted to make sure that our district was fiscally sound to move forward with this budget. And that being said, after all of that review on April 16th, the executive county superintendent approved our preliminary budget, and we advertised it in the newspaper on April 23rd for public view to come here today on April 30th and present all of our budget details and have the board consideration to approve it so that we can move forward to the next year. Next slide. Some of our budget highlights, just to start off, our local tax levy increase is 2%. We talked about that in length the last time. Our state aid decrease is negative 4.43%. And we also discussed that in length at the last meeting. We will go into specifically which state aid went up or down or fluctuated in a later slide. We are putting in or doing a couple of capital projects, a total of 2.6 million. Some of those capital projects, we're going to continue the security vestibule, which is on the board agenda tonight for approval, the HVAC replacement in selected classrooms, fire alarm system, and upgrade and replacement of some cameras throughout the district. We also have in our budget for technology equipment and specifically classroom phones, vape detectors, and the door lock project. We are using our surplus money to balance our budget of 1.1 million. Our budget includes our new math curriculum, and we have some other program items invoking any staff reduction, and almost all programs are still being offered, and we have some experience in slight structural modifications. Okay, so now we will pass it over to our superintendent, and I'll jump back on once we get to the financial part.
Well, I just want to say that I do know how hard Lamika worked on this. You've been just such a joy to work with these last 2 weeks. But Lamika, you know, she takes this budget personally. And I've seen how hard she's stressed over it and kind of agonized over it. So we appreciate that. We took the goals just from the goals that we approved as a board. I think we did that in 2023. So we actually have this coming up in a couple of years. But we looked to make sure that the purchases or the major projects we had aligned to these particular goals. How do I move forward?
No. Next slide.
So the goals of every staff member is they create something every year called the professional development plan, where one of their goals is going to be related to their summative evaluation. One of their goals is going to be related to something that they're looking to work on, and one of their goals will be related to something that they and the supervisor work on together. It's a very similar thing for the administrative goals of our assistant principals. My goals are outlined on the NJSBA website. I just submitted my self-evaluation a couple of days ago. And the board members, you have your individual goals, and the board members, you also create board goals. And I know we're having a board retreat here on May 15th. So I imagine those would be something that we talk about that day. The priorities are always going to be student achievement. We in that it's academic, it's social, it's behavioral, it's athletic, it's artistic achievement. The staff SCL, student and staff SCL, and the opportunities that we present, the positive opportunities that we present to students. I think this school's kind of gone is in such a positive direction in terms of prioritizing student safety and school safety, and then planning for the future. And we knocked off a big one with this past year with our the expansion project, and we also did a playground project, and we also did an HVAC project. So we're always looking to the future, and Lamika, I'm sure in the report we'll mention the front door project that we got some information about. Click, please. This budget, looks to make sure it supports every subject that we have, for both the elementary school and at the middle school level. And these are all, mandated by the New Jersey Department of Education, that we make sure that our budget addresses all the following. So you can click again, Bill. And you guys have the access to this to present on the website as well. You can click again, Bill. And now back to Lamika.
Okay. So this year, our annual budget is asking for a tax levy increase of 2%. Total annual budget is $27,612,897, which $25,205,186 is specifically for our general fund, and our special revenue fund would be $2,407,715. With that, again, we are asking for your consideration of a 2% tax levy increase. And this is a difference of $134,349. Next slide. As you can see, the district has between 2021 and 2024 actually 2020 and 2024 has done a 0% increase. We are in a different time in era right now, and during those years, the state aid was very plenty and favorable of our district. Now that we are in a position where we are not receiving the same amount of increase, or we're getting a decrease, it is fiscally responsible for our district to consider to do a 2% just to sustain our budget, and also sustain all of the programs and salaries and staff and health benefit. They go up more than 2%, but we're asking the consideration of 2% for this budget. Next slide. This is just a bar graph to see how steady our budget, our tax levy has been, and where it went up and down. So next one. So how does it affect the tax payers? So right now, looking at the overall assessment value of $231,829, it will be an annual increase of $62.38, with a monthly increase of $5.20 on an assessment value of $231,821. So again, this tax levy is asking for 2%. The dollar value of that from last year to this year is $134,349. This is a reasonable request to maintain our budget per my recommendation. Okay, next. This is just a repeat of what I just said about the assessment value. Monthly annual cost $62.38. Monthly cost $5.20. So when we're looking at our budget and our revenue sources, we as a school district have different accounts that fund our budget. We have a Fund 10, we have a Fund 20, we have Fund 40 and Fund 60, but that is not applicable to our budget in general, but it is accessible to districts that it applies to. So let's talk about the Fund 10. Our revenue sources from Fund 10, where do they come from? The majority of our district Fund 10, which is our general fund revenue sources, come from our state aid numbers. As I mentioned before, our state aid numbers decrease about -4%. So the typical fluctuation each year, depending on the state political position and agenda. The state aid numbers are usually released at the end of February. By that time, we're already started, developing our budget. And then we start to project what we think we're going to get. Most districts prefer for to our state aid to be flat or an increase, but that is not what happened in Helden. Okay. Another revenue source is tuition that we receive. It can be a Kenny-Vento student. It can be refunds from a previous year, adjustments from tuition adjustment from last year to this year. Sometimes we go by a tentative tuition rate, and then once the state does their audit a year later, districts are either we owe some districts money, or usually it's private school, or we get refunds. Typically, we get around $10,000 back every year. So we budgeted for about $10,000 for this year. Another revenue source is interest on our bank accounts, our reserves, our general funds. And we estimate historically of what we received in the last year, and also take in consideration the Fed rate for the year. And we estimate approximately what we think we will receive. And this is just a projected number. The actual numbers are obviously unknown, and we just look at historical data before we decide on what number is that. We also use E-rate funding. We look at what we anticipate getting with E-rate. We look at what we got before. And please understand, like when you're projecting these numbers, this is just a projection. And the projection is according to what we've done historically and what we anticipate to get. Okay. We also have miscellaneous revenues, and this is just from prior projections of what we've gotten for any reason. It could be a refund. It can be a service we provided to someone. It can be something of the shared services that we have. All of those are miscellaneous income for like transportation or anything, or rental use. This is all the miscellaneous income that districts receive. The other revenue sources are 2% tax levy, or our tax levy in general. We can do it at 2%, which we're recommending this year, or whatever the board recommendation is at the time. And another revenue source that we use is fund balance. The fund balance is the audited amount of our expenses from the prior year. When we do our audit every year, when I present the audit numbers, there's a total amount of expenditures that we accumulated throughout the last year. Districts are allowed to take 2% of your previous year's expenses and allocate those funds to fund balance. Fund balance are funds that can be used for general funds. So we're allowed to assign at least 2% of our prior year expenses to a revenue source in order to fund our budget, which we have typically done for the last years, as far as I can remember. Like as far as I've seen, we've approximately used around 900,000 one year, and this year we're using 1.1 million to balance our budget. And the other items are our reserves, which is our capital reserve, maintenance reserve, emergency reserve, tuition reserve, if the district, the board decides to use those. And other options, which we did not exercise this year, the board has something called adjustments. The adjustments are stored over the years when the districts do not increase their budget to the recommended tax levy allotment. Districts store this money in bank cap and health adjustments to be used in case there is a need. For instance, say we did not get the state aid numbers we needed, and we're way below our amount of expenditures or what we budgeted for. These amounts and health adjustments and bank cap, we can actually raise taxes using these dollar amounts to get our budget to where we need. So this is what this stored money, and I say stored because it's only realized once you decide to use it, just in case of an emergency where the district did not receive the funding that they need for this upcoming budget year. So does everyone understand that part with the health adjustment?
And you only have 3 years to use that, by the way.
And you only have 3 years, absolutely.
And just for the public, and this would be the first year, right?
We're not using it.
What
Yeah,
do
we're
we
not
use?
using it.
No, we're not using it.
We're
It's
not
just an
using it.
example.
No, I know, I'm saying, but it's 3 years to use it. So this
Yeah,
should be the
so
first year.
it'll
That's a
show,
question, yeah.
it'll
Right.
show on the budget software 3 years of how much bank cap and health adjustment you have. So for instance, it'll show the year that it accumulated
Right.
in the year. So every year it keeps dropping off every
Right.
time you don't
Right,
use it.
okay.
So if you don't use it and, it's not there anymore.
It could disappear,
It can
just for the
disappear.
public to
I
know,
think I
right?
saw the number was like 900.
It's
932.
32,000
thousand that will lose out this year if we don't use it.
We'll
Or
lose part of it.
part of it.
Part of it,
Yes.
because we got 3 years to
It's
lose.
like 149,000.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Just for the public to know.
Yeah, just one question on this end, if possible.
Mhm.
I mean, I heard obviously with the adjustments that indicating, and this is in case of emergencies, in case in case the state cut aids as well, or this is just specific emergencies per se.
No, it's not, I say emergency because if you don't have the funding to support your budget, if you don't have any revenue sources, we don't have to go through the emergency process to use this. We just would pass the resolution. We don't have to go to the voters per se. The board can make a decision to say, we need to continue supporting our staff, students, and our programs. Let's use bank cap and the health adjustment so that we don't have to make any drastic changes.
And this is worst case scenario.
And this is worst case scenario
Right.
if we have to.
I should say that the majority of the state is using it for this year for the first time, bank cap.
Yes.
So the
yes.
majority is, and I would imagine almost 100% by next year is going to use it. I hope you don't maybe you're going to be 99, you'll be the 1% that doesn't. But it's scary right now how many districts had to go into bank cap.
Now, Mr. Merlino, I'm sorry, Mr. Merlino, do you, I mean, when you said about 99% using it, do we kind of have an idea how did they utilize that funding?
It's for it's healthcare. So health insurance went up over 10%. So when you have decreased state aid and you're using your surplus and your capital reserves, eventually those accounts run out, and now you don't have those accounts. So when your health insurance goes up by more than 10%, you're going to need to use bank cap space unless you get more state aid. Now you guys have been really fiscally responsible, so you're in that 1%. You are in the greatest. I haven't seen any district with raising taxes just by 2%. You are the lowest I've seen. So I hope next year you are that 1%. Everybody else is now hit the bank cap.
Thank you.
Okay, so the other revenue source we have, which we will be using, next slide, is Fund 20. So Fund 20 is federal funds. So and I hate to say it, at the mercy of the federal government, to make sure that, to see what we will receive. I don't have the information yet. This comes out to, around July and August. And what Fund 20 entails is our title funds. So we have Title I, which we do have salaries in Title I. We support our after-school program, and we buy supplies specifically for Title I and initiatives and incentives. We also have Title II. A lot of the Title II funds do support professional development and also, supporting our staff and to make sure that they're, understanding and ready to support our student body. Title III is ESL and immigrant. This title we get the least money from. And Title IV is STEM and usually support PBIS, PD, and supplies. And we also have our IDEA funding, which is out-of-district tuition. And I also want to preface the IDEA funding too. We offset a lot of our out-of-district tuition with IDEA funds. So as a district, we're waiting to see what these numbers are because we have to make sure that we can obviously handle and support this these expenses when these numbers come out. So I will keep the board updated once those federal funds are released. And I did budget, typically what all BAs usually do is budget 80 to 85% less, or budget 80 to 85% of what we received in the prior year. So if we received about $1 million, I budget 80% of that, just so that we are not in a position where we put all of these expenditures there and now we don't receive what we anticipated and we have to kind of go back to the drawing board. Okay, so, but just know we do have salaries in title. I am optimistic that we will at least get enough for to support the salaries, but you know, it's a waiting game right now for all districts. Okay. We also have our preschool monies are in federal funds. We already kind of know what we're getting in state aid with preschool monies. We also have carryover. I did have a conversation with the finance team, letting them know I went to one of the preschool meetings. The state or the federal funds, federal government is talking about not allowing districts to use carryover money anymore in preschool. So that is still in a conversation, or at least I think it is. I don't know if they settled on that yet, but I will follow up on that. And having these carryover funds in preschool does help that budget. And it did go down a lot from last year to this year. And you'll see that in a later slide. Okay. Okay, so this is a summary of our revenue sources and the projections of what we came up with this year. We'll start with our general fund again. Our tax levy, we're asking for 2%, which, you know, we've just heard that and I know we are, because we are the lowest as far as increase this year, but this budget is very conservative, and it does. We're able to meet all of our obligations with this budget as is in the way we projected. So 2%, again, I am recommending that we do 2% at least, so that we can support the programs and the staff members and everything we need to do here. The other item we're doing was our excess surplus. This is a surplus that I mentioned during the audit. This is a 2% estimate of what we can use from our prior year expenses. So we're using 1.1 million. This is an increase from last year, but this is necessary to balance our budget. Interest is between interest and miscellaneous. This is all the other items that I looked at historical data and, you know, just projected an amount that's reasonable that we can kind of plug in to say that we anticipate these funds. Our state aid overall, between all of the sources, went down about 326 million, but USC 326,000, but USC on a later spreadsheet, you'll see them line by line, and you'll see which category went up and down. So there was a big fluctuation between all of them. Our Medicaid semi went down quite a lot. So we usually estimate last year around $30,000, and that's been consistent over the years. This year, you can see the big dip. And this is something that is a projection that we get from the state and saying, this is what you plug into your number for this. This is a big difference from last year to this year. Our federal funds, again, just this is between the state and federal. I projected a very conservative amount. So we wanted to make sure that we are not putting too much in those categories just yet until we understand what the actual numbers are. Preschool aid, also this includes our carryover. So again, you will see in a lot of later slide that our aid amount is actually lower than what you're seeing here. This is our carryover plus our aid. And our revenue, our capital and maintenance reserves. So this is what we have stored up over the years, and it supports our long-range facility plan and also whatever monies that we allow to put into our maintenance reserve. Our overall budget went up about 7%, but later on you'll see where that correlates also with other appropriations and expenditures. Next, this is just a diagram to show you what percentage of our revenue sources come from state aid, what percentage come, which is about 50%, what percentage comes from our tax levy, and what percentage comes from other aids, which is 5.3%, and our special revenue, which is about 3.5%. So in all, if you look at the other aid, state aid, and our special revenue funds, the majority of our budget is dependent on outside sources. So I just want everyone to be like very cognizant of that. Our revenue sources, or the majority of them, are coming, and we depend on our outside state and federal government to support our budget. So. Okay. So here you will see the breakdown of our state aid. We have our equalization aid went down minus 2.52%. Our transportation aid went up a little, by 0.62%. Special education aid went down negative 4.4%. Our security aid went down 14%. And this is where I was letting you know about our preschool aid. You see the difference of how much it went down from last year to this year, almost 20%. So, and these are all federal funds that we're receiving. They're a mixture of, I guess, state funds. So next slide. So when we're looking at our expenditures, we're going to go from, line by line, from our regular instruction all the way to our capital. So looking at our expenditures for 2025-26. So in our regular program, which supports salary, supply services in our new math curriculum, to say the least, that we went up about 1.4%. Okay. Our bilingual education, a negative 0.5%, which also support our supplies, salaries, and other services. Basic skills went up 7%, salaries, supplies, and services. Our co-curricular, we looked at those areas to make sure that we were more accurate in our projections. So as you can see, we went down 18% in those areas. And then our grants, which is our title and pre-K, about 6% increase. And charter schools, about 63%, went up to 63%. So our charter schools is not something that I can say, okay, we're only going to budget a certain amount. The state gives us a notice, just like they give us a state aid notice. This is your projection for charter schools. This is what you have to budget for, because this is to support the projected amount of enrollment for next year.
So can I just clarify that? So that's for students who are in our district who are attending charter schools?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So we don't have technically a choice on budgeting or not paying that bill. So that is something that we're obligated to do for all the kids that live in our district.
President?
Yes.
And I just want to point out too, as it pertains to charter schools, not only do we have to pay their salary, the tuition, we have to pay their transportation as well, which could be very, very costly in our district. And perhaps that's something that this board can look into. What are the legal ways that we can make sure that our children attend our local public school versus going out of district to a charter school?
Great.
And just for your own comfort, we have taken an approach to make sure that every student that we do pay for does live in our district. So we do residency verification to make sure that every tuition that we are paying for is our student. Okay. The next is our special education costs. So our instruction includes salaries and supplies and related services for our special education program. We wanted to make sure that those expenses were appropriately budgeted. We looked at all of the line items to make sure, and we also worked with Mr. Mendez to make sure that we have the appropriate amount, because these expenses vary from year to year. And we just look at what we paid last year, the year before, and did an estimate of what the future needs of the students that we have enrolled currently, okay? On the other end, if you see here where it says the IDA grant, the tuition went down. I intentionally decreased this just to make sure that we are getting the correct amount of funding. So we did not want to put more than we needed to in the IDA grant, because again, this is the amount that we need to verify in July and August. And if we do receive the amount that we need to cover these out-of-district tuitions, then we will make that adjustment accordingly. And again, I will keep the board updated on those federal funds. And we have our regular out-of-district tuition that we just did an assessment of every student that we have out of district, and we wanted to make sure that was appropriate. We did some adjustments accordingly. So overall, special education went down 1.9%.
So the charter schools went up, special ed schools went down.
The charter school, I don't even have a say in that. It is what and it's
Yeah, it's
automatically put
Interesting.
into the budget software
Mhm.
automatically.
Right.
So it's not even something that I can even adjust. at
Yeah,
all.
it's just an interesting
Mhm.
observation.
Yeah. So as we move along to our other support services, we have our speech extraordinary aid. Yes, this does have to do with the child study team, and it supports all students' IEP. So we looked at those areas to make sure that we are on point, and we do pay for some vendors for some services. So we wanted to make sure that was all incorporated appropriately in the budget. We have our health and attendance and salaries and services for here. So this has to do with personnel mainly more than our health benefits. We'll get to our health benefits later down on that line. We have our guidance department. This mainly has to do with salaries, supplies and services, and the same thing with the child study team line items. And we also have instruction. I think we were looking at the instruction line, and this has to do with curriculum development and PD. If you remember, we did discuss about reducing some of the professional development that we have from last year to this year. So that's where the biggest dip in that line item comes from. And also our library, media, salaries, and supplies. So overall, this section of student support services went up about 18%, with the fluctuation of looking at certain line items where we went down the most in the professional development line item. Okay?
Madam President?
Yes.
Madam VA, improvement of instruction and training, cut by 50 or nearly 50%. Can you talk a little bit about that?
There was a program that was done last year that didn't need to be done this year. So that's mainly where that cut came from. So if there was a PD that was done, I believe that cost a certain amount last year that we didn't need it this year. So
I just want everybody to be aware.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm. Next slide, please. So now we're on our buildings, grounds, and capital projects. So here we have our building maintenance, required maintenance for our district. And remember, this line item is supported by our maintenance reserve funds that we've had stored up. So overall, we looked, Mr. Mann and I looked at each line item. We looked at all the things that the district will need next year. This line item support the building required maintenance, repairs, security services in our SRO. This is the line item that we just looked at very meticulously and made sure that we were just being reasonable and looking at all of the projects that we may need to do next year, looking at overtime, looking at all of these items to make sure that we are where we can find some savings here. And then believe we also had some retirements of custodial staff. We did an analysis to see how many staff members we had and what is the required amount for school districts. Just so everyone know that in a building, each custodian should be able to clean about 17,500 square feet. We did the math of what our square footage was, and we divided up how many custodians we need. So Jermaine did that very early on when he came on board. And remember, I don't know if you guys remembered, you guys hired a few extra custodians during the COVID years. So we had more items that we needed to take care of. But when there was a request for a retirement, we did not fill that position. So that's where a lot of that savings come from too. Okay.
Thank you.
In our capital projects. So our capital projects, again, is funded by our reserves. And as we mentioned early on, our capital projects consist of our HVAC project, our fire alarms, and we're also looking into addressing some of the piping issues that we have throughout the building, specifically around the cafeteria area. Okay, so we'll move on to our administration, and administration primarily is just salary increases. We have our communication that we pay for, and other professional services like legal, architectural, environmental. We also pay for what was the architect, and it was another one that we're going out for RFP, but I'll talk about that later. And we also have our school administration, which is just salary, supplies, and services on this line item. And our central services and technology department, and here we're doing a few projects, so and buying a few other vape detectors, and also I believe this is a server that we're buying, and this also supports our shared service agreement. Next slide. We're almost to the end, guys. And our last is our transportation. Again, we took a look at all of our transportation costs from last year to this year. We made sure that we were budgeted reasonably. We looked at some of the out of district students. We do pay aid in lieu, and like Commissioner Guzman was saying, that the aid in lieu is a payment that we give to charter school students and also non-public students that do not attend our school district. We pay them for the transportation costs, even if they don't come to our school. Okay, so that is where, that is what aid in lieu is. And we are making sure that these students are our students before we pay them out. And that was an overall negative decrease, about 5.1, just because, just looking at it more meticulously and making sure that the projection is reasonable and the expenditures are reasonable. And then we have our health benefits. Our health benefits went up 19%. We're projecting that amount because we received, I reached out to our consultant to see if there's a possibility of any type of relief anywhere, or if there's anything out in the market that we can, maybe even consider. I received the report back, and we're only eligible to be in the state health benefits, and with that cost, we have to endure their increase, which is estimate about like 18 to 19%. So we have to project for that. So our overall budget went up about 7.9% between the different categories. And this is where we stand as far as our expenditures. Any questions on those?
Ms. Augustine, a question if possible. I have a question on, relates to the special ed program, with the forecasting of the amount doubling from the previous. And as I heard you before said in the other lines, that this is in lieu, like especially when it comes to charter schools, we are paying for students going outside of our schools and they're not attending our schools. And on top of it, we're paying for transportation. Is there a possible way to, or is there something that could be done in the form of passing some costs down? That's one of the questions. As far as the charter school, the doubling up, as far as for the forecast being doubled up from 1.8 to almost 2.2.
So for transportation costs and any type of charter school payment, the districts are obligated to pay it. The only way you can get around that if the kids come to our school district. It is in statute, we have to provide this transportation, not only for the charter school, for any private school students, non-public schools, and any students that live 2 miles away, which there's not many students in this area that does that, but we will have to either provide the transportation or pay the aid and bill. Those are our obligations. The only way that you can change that is if you change the law. Yeah.
Thanks.
Or if the student comes to our district.
I think what we want to do is make Hilton Public School the best school it can be and as attractive as possible so that students will come. Yes, especially students going to charter schools. Sometimes with the special ed, it's their needs are very specific, and if we can't meet those here, that's, it's a different scenario. But like with the charter schools, it would be great to get some of those students back into our district. That would be not just financially, but just, so that we have them and we can serve them here at home, in our own district.
Madam President,
Yes.
so this is reminiscent of Manchester with the Passaic County Tech. And I remember that we rallied for years to get our children that reside here in Hilton that go to Passaic County Tech to have proper transportation. Now Manchester was within their right. They said we're not going to pay for it. Passaic County Tech should pay for it because they go there. But Manchester would be obligated to pay for it. However, that's the 2 mile thing.
For high school, it's 2.5 miles.
Exactly,
Yeah,
2.5
for high school,
miles
it's 2 miles.
from Hilton to Passaic County Tech. Technically, Hilton didn't have to cover the transportation, but finally, Passaic County Tech was nice enough to pay for it, for the transportation, and our kids no longer have to walk up that hill and be exposed to all the dangers up there trying to get up to Tech from Hilton. But that was a lot of years of advocating for that, right? Now, what is stopping this board to see perhaps if any of those charter schools want to, pay for their students for transportation to go there?
There's a difference though.
Okay,
For Hilton, for Manchester, they don't provide busing. And we're a walking district in general. The
Correct.
only reason why we pay for transportation is in the kids' IEP, or if the charter school is over 2 miles. The reason why they did not pay it for the kids in Tech, because it was under 2.5 miles. That was the real reason. I know what went out there may have been different,
Okay.
but the real reason is that the walking, because we do provide transportation for some kids that are 2.5 miles outside of that. But if you're within 2.5 miles, you're not obligated to provide the transportation. And the distance between where Manchester or whoever, because my child was there too, and we had the driver, because we were within the 2.5 miles. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So. Okay, so this is a summary of all of the appropriations that we just discussed by category. The overall amount was increases of 7.49%, and we have the different categories of the regular program, special education, tuition, transportation, maintenance and security, central office, administration, technology, salaries, health benefits, special revenue fund, and the capital projects. That is our total appropriation of 27,712,897, and we were able to balance that with our revenues. Next page. And that's just a breakdown of the percentage of how much our appropriation, so 41% of our appropriation is dedicated to salaries. The other 17% is dedicated to benefits, and that is not abnormal in most organizations. Your salaries and your benefits is a larger part of your budget, and that is where most of our cost is. And you have other breakdowns of, of expenditures, but just know that this is where the majority of any impact of anyone's budget will be in the salaries and health benefits. Okay, next page. This is just a breakdown of our salaries by program. We have regular program went down 9.49%. Special education went up 22.77%, and maintenance and reserve went down about 4%. Transportation overall went down -24%. Secretaries 28%. School administration went down -12%. And Fund 20 in preschool went up about 10.42%, which our overall increase in salaries is 7.29%, and that is throughout the district, including the Fund 20 items. This also includes Fund 20, okay? Next slide. This is just a breakdown by percentages of each category. Regular program is about 56%, special education 22%, and so forth. And we have about 8% into our Fund 20. So this is the one that I will be watching just to make sure that we are good there. Next slide. We have our capital projects, like we stated before. This is a breakdown of that, about 2.6 million. We have 4 classroom HVAC replacement, 405,000. Fire alarm upgrade is estimated about $1 million. Building pipe upgrade and replacement, about 300,000, and a roof to the HVAC gym and other selected classrooms, about 819,000. And our last is our classroom and technology equipment, which we've discussed already. We have classroom phones upgrades that we've been working on over the past few years. We've been doing a little bit each year. So, and we also have our dashboard renewal. What is that? That's the server, right?
Firewall. Yeah.
Firewall, yeah. Okay, and then we have our vape detectors that we're putting in our door lock project, which we're making all the doors digitals so that everyone can have a swipe card, and that will be done in phases. Okay, and that is the end of my budget presentation. I am open to any questions from the board, and then we will open up the floor to the public to make any questions after I think we approve the correspondence, right?
Actually.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Ramadan.
Actually, first, I want to commend Ms. Augustine and Mr. Walker, and I'm sure her team as well for doing a great job on putting the budget together, because obviously this is a very hectic situation, requires a lot of attention, a lot of research, projections, among other. Now, we are reluctant to have not to increase the taxes in the past couple of years based on being healthy from the state, some grants from the state. Now, what avenues are we using to try to stay proactive in the future if the state normally proceeds with this line of cuts, with more cuts or more aids being reduced? We're trying to be proactive about it to try to avoid tax levies in the future.
I don't think we could avoid tax levy in the future. That's my opinion from what I know. The only thing that we could do is mine our expenses, which we are definitely working on doing that. Even with our cabinet meeting today, we had another discussion with the admin team to make sure that everything is justifiable. I want to make sure, and I've asked for specifics when they're presenting and, recommendation for employees. We stated in our preliminary meeting that we are going to be replacing people. If someone is going to retire, we're replacing, we're not adding on new hires. The only exception would be if there's a child study team request specifically to increase a classroom, but right now it's looking like we don't have to do that. So that is another area. We're looking to make sure that we can cover expenses in every area. Even when there's a request, we've already asked that our staff members let us know what budget is coming out of, and we're going to refer back to the budget to make sure that it was already in there before they send the request. So we are buckling down on everything that we need to do to make sure that we are monitoring every penny that comes out. And I just continue to encourage you guys to ask questions when you see things on the agenda so that, we can be accountable to what we said we're going to do.
Well, Tez, I think this is like my 6th year in this position. And in that time, we've raised property tax a total of 2%. And then after tonight, I'm hopeful that it'll be a total of 4%. In that time period, I don't think you're going to find too many other municipalities that had such a 4% total over the course of 6 years tax increase. And yeah, we benefited, not, the society did not benefit from COVID, but fiscally, it was something that helped support us. But many other districts got the same COVID funding that we got and had raised taxes over the course of that time period. And they're still riffing large numbers of staffs right now, and we're not doing that. So we're definitely not asleep at the wheel, and we're going to make the best possible decisions based on the best possible, and that's what we're going to continue to do with this.
No, good. I mean, I commend your administrators, your cabinets, your staff, among others. You definitely guys doing a great job in keeping the ship floating and tightening the belts. It just, again, this is a projection down the line. Again, now we know where we are, we know where we're heading. The idea is to have a focus and a plan to try to stay within the guidelines and floating without incurring other expenses and costs. So this is literally, as Miss Augustine, she's good with projections for the future. Maybe there's a projection down the line. We could think about it, put it together, go with it. That's going to help us and help our community as well, and benefit everybody in between, from our kids all the way out to our taxpayers as well.
Thank you, Montez.
Madam President,
Yes.
if I may, there's only one thing about this budget I'm not so thrilled about. That's 18, almost nearly 19% cut in extracurricular activity. And let me just explain. A school district is a very, very sensitive situation because we're talking about those precious jewels, which is our children. We're not, me personally, I'm not for cutting anything. I feel like these are the bare bones of what we're working with right now. We have to understand something. If you cut a program, you cut extracurricular activity, guess what happens? That's something less that our children have to do after school, okay? We want to make sure that we set up our children for success. Student achievement, everybody always talked about your student achievement like it was about A's and B's. It's not just about A's and B's. It's about giving our children the tools to be able to succeed and be great, productive members of society. And those programs are very crucial because now, instead of being in an extracurricular activity, what are they going to do? They're going to go find something to do, okay? And guess who has to deal with that? The police department, okay? So we need the cooperation of the school district. School district has a $27 million budget. The municipality has about $11 million. Okay, so let's not forget that. As far as property taxes, I want to talk about that too. In times of uncertainty, all you can do is point to your track record. That's it. That's it. So let's look at the track record of this Board of Education. Mr. Walker, when did you start in this school?
October 2020.
2020 as superintendent. How about as principal?
2016 or 17.
Okay. Now, let's look at that real quick. 2015, raised taxes 1.995%. 2016, 2%. 2017, 4.27%. 2018, 2%. 2019, negative 1.10%. 2020, 0%. 2021, 0%. 2022, 0%. 2023, 0%. 2024, 0%. 2025, 2%, which is the bare minimum. 2026, again, 2%, the bare minimum. This is the same Board of Education that throughout all those years also has board retreats. We don't cater all types of food and just waste money. We do potlucks. My wife is up at 4 a.m. making empanadas for the board. You know, same thing for the rest of the board members. We don't go on extravagant, conferences and things like that. This board has never been about that. This board is about one thing: student achievement. Okay. We also have to make sure that our educators are taken care of as well. Because why? Because if they're not paid a fair wage, okay, then that hurts their morale. Okay, and we want to make sure that their morale is high so they can better serve our children. Same thing with our administrators. Okay, this is the bare minimum. This is the bare minimum. Like, to me, to talk about cutting anything, no, absolutely not. This is the bare minimum. This board has committed itself to fiscal responsibility, student achievement, school safety, preschool education. We did a whole expansion to the school without having to raise taxes. I feel this board has done its job. And not this board, because our job is really not that hard. We're elected by the people to do what? We're elected by the people to do two things: to hire the superintendent and evaluate the superintendent. That is our job. And obviously we help guide the superintendent. So that's his job. We can't tell the superintendent, do this, do that, put this person here, put that person there. That is not within the purview of the Board of Education. Okay? That is the superintendent's job. Now, we have an attorney online. If I'm wrong, correct me. Okay? That is Mr. Walker's job to continue, and let's trust Mr. Walker. Why? Because like I said, in times of uncertainty, you go to the track record. Let's look at Mr. Walker's track record. Has he shown a track record of being irresponsible? Has he shown a track record of wasting money? What are we talking about here? Talking about all this and that. Are you kidding me? This is a man that has shown a track record of nothing but fiscal responsibility. Okay? Not only to the students as he should, but to the taxpayers too. And if somebody has a problem with it, he has an evaluation coming up. Put it all in there. That is our job, to evaluate the superintendent and to hire a superintendent. Okay, and it's very important. Continuity, another thing. It's extremely important. Before Mr. Walker was here, we used to go through superintendents and principals like it was no tomorrow. There was no continuity for these children. It was a bunch of changes here. New principal comes, new programs, new this, new that. The children never had a chance to adapt to anything. And we have to understand all of this, the complexity. There is no magic formula. We have to work together. We have to make the decisions as they come up and move forward. That's all we can do. And I could lay my head on the pillow and know, as a longest serving board member here since 2016, January. I'm coming up on 10 years, by the way. I'm very excited about that. That we have done that. We have really, truly done that. Are we perfect? No, we're not perfect. But this budget, for Mrs. Augustin, you don't have to answer this if you don't want, but are you worried that this may not pass? Because if you are, that is so sad. Like, it really is. It's actually comical. I have to laugh because 2%.
She knew not the answer.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that you should come here, Mrs. Augustin. You should be proud of the work that you have done with you and your team and Mr. Walker putting together this budget. All right, that has the bare bone minimum. And I'm voting. Now I'm not voting yes. I'm voting absolutely. And also, I wish that we weren't cutting extracurricular activities, because now that's something less that our children have to do. I don't know. We have to look into
A lot of the BOSS program took maybe a 25% reduction.
It's a reduction, but not a cut.
No, we're still gonna look at if you guys vote yes, we're still gonna have it this year. And then a lot of some of the after school extra tutoring and learning loss programs that were prevalent.
It was
those are gonna be gone.
Mr. Walker
Reductions,
shared that, those cuts, I think
I
at the
could
last,
share it tomorrow if you'd
before
like,
the
but it's
last
about
board
160
Oh,
or
no, I was
70,000.
wondering
I'm
why
sorry,
we
Madam
talking
President, I have
about
the
that right
floor,
now.
Madam President.
I'm sorry.
So what I'm saying is this, it's important that we look, let's keep our finger on the pulse. Let's stay focused. And I know times are uncertain, but let's continue to look at our track record, which has been positive. And let's have faith in our administration that they're going to continue to guide the school district in the right, in the right way, with obviously with the support of this Board of Education and the public. You know, I think that's very important. As far as the 18.6% cut in extracurricular activities, I appreciate them being proactive and say, okay, perhaps we don't need this club or that club because they want to prepare for the future. I get it. But at the same time, let's remember that's a sacrifice. That is something less that these children have to do after school, okay, or on the weekend or during the summer. Let's remember that. That's all I got to say.
thank you, Mr. Guzman. I do want to address those extracurricular cuts were, if you remember, we received communication from Mr. Walker about those. I don't think anything was cut completely. They were all
A lot of
reductions
truncation,
in,
yeah.
but I do want to say, regarding the cutting, you know, regarding programs, regarding our staff, it all goes back to the point about the charter schools. If we want to keep our students in district, if we want them to come here, if we want Haledon to be an attractive town for families to move to, our school has to be top, you know, and we need staff, we need programs, we need to be able to offer all of those things, quality things to our residents and their children. So, you know, it's something to keep in mind. And yes, we have to balance the budget, you know, but there has to be balance there. That's the key, you know. It can't, you know, it's going to be tax levy. It's going to be maybe having to make some tough decisions here, maybe cuts here, and we don't know what the, you know, next year will bring. But I trust that Ms. Augustin and Mr. Waka and the administration are doing their best to, as of right now, and as of always, really spend wisely and, you know, do what they need to do to make sure that we're solvent, to make sure that we're not going into debt, and we're in a good position right now, and we're gonna watch this closely, and you know, the board should watch it closely and ask questions. Go ahead, Mr. Martinez.
Ms. Agustin, great job. I've looked at the past few years of the budgets that we've had, and even when we thought the worst was the worst, we didn't have to change a thing, right? Why? Because we prepped ahead of time. Now, I wanted the 2% increase the year before that, but you know, that was just me because I kind of saw it coming, and we, you know, but
Talked about it.
But you know, again, you know, it is what it is. But I'm glad that we're able, even when you know things happen or life happens or budgets are not what we expect them to be. The fact that we're ahead of the game speaks about a lot. And thank you. Very super grateful to be part of this board and the way it's being managed.
Anybody else? Any other questions, comments from board members?
Good job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms.
Madam
Augustin.
President,
Yes,
can we just make sure we follow up on that resolution that we sent down to the governor and our state representatives from the 35th legislative district? That's another thing. We have to continue to keep our finger on the pulse on that, because it's important that our school is fully funded in an effort for us to continue serving our school community, especially our children. Our children deserve every single penny in this budget.
was it sent, Ms.
Oh, yeah,
Augustin?
it was
Okay,
definitely sent.
okay.
Mhm.
great, yeah, good. Thanks for the reminder. Okay, so we have a couple of things here before we, you know, we'll open the floor to the public. And then we'll vote on the budget after we review quickly the committee reports. So, okay, so can I have a motion to approve correspondence.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Turner? Mr. Guzman?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson? Yes. Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Matzo?
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan?
Yes.
And Mrs. Issa?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve prior minutes?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Martinez. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Turner? Mr. Guzman?
Yes.
Ms. Martinez, sorry. Mrs. Johnson? Yes. Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Matzo?
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan?
Abstain.
Do we have enough for?
Mrs. Issa, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes.
But if we read the minutes, we don't have to.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to, if you weren't at
Read the
the
minutes, right.
previous meeting, you don't have to abstain. If you read the minutes, you can vote. It's up to
Right,
you.
right.
Okay, okay, so, before we open the floor to the public, I just want to explain, we have to be consistent with our policies with, public, even if there's nobody else here, we stick to the 3-minute time frame for the public to speak. So, can I have a motion to open the floor to the public on agenda items only?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Guzman, seconded by Mr. Motzko. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the agenda, the floor is open to members of anybody who's here first in person can, okay, just state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Lauren Davis Career, 74 West Carolina. First I want to talk about the budget to the chair, Madam President, great job, Madam VA and Mr. Walker and your team. I just have kind of just questions because Mr. Douglas took all my ideas that I had.
I'm sorry.
So I need to know with the 63% increase in charter schools, how many of those students come back? And how do we get reimbursement when it doesn't work out for them? All right, because, if you're acting up in a charter school, they're going to send you back to your home district. So do we get that money back? Is it prorated? I need to find that out because that's money that we need to be getting back to our district. When it comes to the professional development, I wanted to see if you could tap into William Patterson, Montclair State for the continuing education programs that they have. Sometimes they come in and they give PD workshops because they have a lot of grant money. So you don't have to spend any money, and your teachers at the end of the year that they have to fill out the paperwork that they've done like 20 hours of professional development can be done through those colleges. The other question for your autistic population of students, I wanted to know how many students are out of district that we have to pay for, because that's a big chunk of tuition money. And then, let's see. Going back to Mr. Walker, when we were talking about attendance in the beginning, I can talk about that? Okay. So normally there's 180 days that students have to do during the school year. You have, and being an educator, this is what I'm talking about. Okay. So you have 5 consistent days in a row that you can have unexcused absences for. In the state mandate, you can't be out more than 21 days of the school year without having truancy coming to your door and asking a parent, why aren't you in school? Then, see, and yeah, you have to go to court, exactly. So it's hard for all the school districts right now to try to figure out what the magic potion is, but in your student handbook, are you retaining students that have been out for more than 50 days out of the school year? Because you can't keep pushing kids on if they are not in school. Now, I know I use Google Classroom for students that have, been out sick for a number of days. But then you also have bedside for students that are going to be out, if they've been in the hospital or whatever. Those are excused reasons. And of course, we have to pay home instruction for that. We have to pay teachers for that. But for us for educators to have to bear that burden on making sure that they pass a test and they have not been in school half of the school year, we have to do better. So, maybe that's something that you have to talk to the legislature about, changing some of the rules, because since COVID, it is tough. There's a lot of mental illness and there's a lot of stress, and we have to figure out what we're going to do with, the social emotional learning part of it. Okay.
And Ms. Farah, please wrap it up. It's been 4 minutes.
So basically, those are some of my questions. And then to bring out, I was one of those parents that sent my kids to private school. There's reasons why people go to private school. There's reasons why people go to charter schools. At the time when we moved here, the kindergarten got out, it was a half a day. I worked. There was no way that I can send my kids to Hampton Public Schools. It didn't mean that it wasn't a great school. It was not good for us because we had to work and we were educators, and we got out of school later than the school system at that time. I think you got out at like 2:35 or 2:40 at that time. When it comes to transportation, I got transportation because my kid went to private school, but it's reimbursement. It's, we drove our kid to school, so we didn't have a bus that took him to school. So it's really a reimbursement that we get from Manchester. So if you want to change the verbiage to kind of make you feel a little better, it's really a reimbursement thing. Okay. And when it comes to Passaic County Tech, my husband and I and a bunch of parents went to the board and we rallied for that bus because, we didn't want Charles walking to school at, up that hill in Oldham without having sidewalks and the coyotes and stuff running around. Okay, so that's how those buses came about, to take our kids from Rose Street over to Passaic County Tech and lobby that they need to pay for it because they pay for the kids in Patterson.
I don't want to say that,
but that's how that works out. Okay, so you kind of know the backstory on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Charles
Mr.
Ferrer.
Ferrer.
So I'm going to start with the charter schools, and my first question is, how do you know these people that you're paying for to go to these charter schools actually live in Haledon? And the reason why I'm going to use that example is because every morning I take my wife to work at school too, and there's this car in front of me. We both are going down Belmont Ave. And when I stop at school 2, they stop right in front of me at school 2, and their children get out at school 2. Okay, so people are doing all kinds of things. People are using friends' addresses and all kinds of things here and whatnot. They're living in Totowa, Woodland Park, whatever, and going to whatever schools they so desire. So I'm curious to know, do you have definite proof that everybody that you're paying for that's going to a charter school actually lives here? It's not using grandma's address or auntie's address and stuff like that. And because a lot of people spend most of their day trying to figure out how to get over on the system. Okay. The budget's good, but I'm going to say this to you as a board, and I know you commend yourself that you didn't raise money and stuff. Well, I'm going to go back to when Marty Barnes was mayor in Patterson, and they were commending themselves that they were staying flat at $36 million. And they kept kicking that can down the road, and now Patterson is paying about 70 or 80 million into the budget when they should be paying 60 more than that. Okay, because they kept kicking the can down. The state, yes, has a responsibility, but we as taxpayers have a responsibility too, okay? And if we were doing 2% the other years, we might be in a better situation than we are now. So I agree with you, we should have been doing, because still in the back of my mind, since those numbers aren't coming in until August, and I don't believe that they're coming, because I already read today a news break where the Department of Education here says that they're not signing any letter that Trump wants them to sign that's dealing with DEI. So if his threat is either you sign it or you're not getting money, now what? Where does that 2% go? Does it go to 6 or does it go to 13? Okay, we won't know. And the state is obligated to provide a thorough and efficient education. They've been obligated to do that since 18 something. And they still haven't met that obligation. Okay, so once again, we have to look out for here. And I understand the after school programs and stuff like that. All that sounds good. But at some point, if you have to charge the parent a little something for these programs, I watched parents from here when we were training people at Manchester. They were there, or they were going to Ken Kaluko for the summer, paying $2,400 for the summer and stuff like that. So we have to be, sometimes in other areas are saying at the Y in Patterson to go there, there's a fee for the week and there's a $100 fee just to be able to attend. And parents are paying it. So we can't always get on the easy. I see the carnival. I don't know where that money goes and stuff like that. But I always go back to St. Anthony's in Hawthorne. We raise over $1 million through those carnivals and stuff because of the sweat equity of the parents running the games, handling the food concessions and all that stuff. The parishioners there doing it. We could do the same thing here and reach out to the community to say, well, I love running. I love the games. I always, as a kid, I want to be one of these workers. So anytime I have that opportunity to do that, I do it. I tell Patterson that we have East Side Park, West Side Park. That's money that's coming in because we're not like here. Patterson's got all those tax abatements. Okay, so and not one dime comes into the city for that. Thank God we don't have to deal with that here, but these are things that we have to do. So it sounds good not to raise, but we have to. And again, my son, other than playing in that gym, practicing when we're training here in Manchester, but I still pay because it's our responsibility. As I told one person who said, well, I don't think I should be paying. I don't have any kids. I went, when you were in school and she was older than I was, or more seasonal than I was, I said, when you were in school, there were people that didn't have children either, but they felt it was their responsibility to make sure that the children got that education to make them productive citizens because they might be the one that's got to serve you or wait on you. So, so saying we didn't do it, it's not always a good thing because every time I look at that, I reference Patterson. Where would we be if we had been doing those things when we were supposed to? Okay? Because now we're hurting now. And God help us if the federal government says nothing's coming. The taxpayers are going to go through the roof, the ones that are carrying the city, which is like 1/3 of the people in Patterson are carrying the city. Because the county, the state, and the federal, they pay in lieu of taxes. But the budget looks good, but in the back of my head, I'm like, and I've even talked with Congresswoman Poe.
We need to wrap it up, Mr.
Yes,
Ferrer.
I spoke with Congresswoman Poe that she has to encourage her colleagues on both sides of that aisle that we need those numbers when the budgets are due. If the budget's due in April, you need those numbers before then.
Absolutely.
Not in August. Not in August, because now you're gonna come back and you're gonna have to re-vote on something else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody online, Mr. Miller? Okay, so then can I have a motion to close the floor?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Motzko, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Before we move on, Ms. Augustine, do you want to address any of the questions or?
The only question that I can address is the charter school. We have, each year, we have 2 opportunities to verify whether a student is a resident. And it's called, we go on to NJ Homeroom Session 1 and Session 2. We look at the list. We have found students that did not live in the district. I usually find like 1 or 2 each year. So we do deal with that, you know, biannually, and I don't get a prorated amount when the kid leaves, but it's half a year. So that's the most we would get. So I have 2 opportunities throughout the year to, it's usually in October, and then another time around maybe around this time, actually, it might be coming up. So we get 2 opportunities, but the state only prorates it like half a year, not the whole year. So it's not the day they disenroll or when we catch them. It's like at that time when we have to go in and certify. So the charter school certifies and then I certify. And I work with the lady in my office, and I also work with the attendance person here to verify if they register with the district. Because a lot of people don't even know that you still have to register with Heralded because we're paying the bill. And when that happens, that's when they send all their residents and stuff. But so far since I've been here, I usually find around 2 each year of kids that are not residents.
Then real quick on our end, I love the point about the William Patterson School. We're a Williams Patterson partner. We've benefited big time from that partnership, both in getting student teachers and the PD. The only thing that I talked to their dean about this last week, the only thing I've asked them to do is they're so generous with giving PD, but I need PD not between 8 in the morning and 3 p.m. between Monday and Friday, right? Because it's so hard to get, so like I want to, philosophically, I want to send the teachers out for it, but when they do after school or weekend PD, that's so, like, it's just, in order for me to be the staff as we need to be, that's helpful. So they're going to look to do that. And I also asked that if they could have their big PD events, if they could reach out to all the neighboring districts and say, when is your in-service day? When's your in-service day? And if we can coordinate to kind of have one solid in-service day that all local schools kind of look to have as their PD day, then we could have sent a whole bunch of people to William Patterson because we're not having kids to take care of that day. But I think it's a great point. Your point about the retaining students, it's such a fine line, right? Because we have to put students in age-appropriate grades, right? Like that's super duper important. But it's also what you said to teachers, like if you're teaching between grade 3 and 8 and you're having a kid take this test, they're not there. Like I get the position that's in. I'm glad the state kind of went down on their reliance of the SGO, but it's still there, right? At least to a certain extent. And then I didn't even know we had coyotes around here, so that was interesting.
I had no idea.
We got bears too.
The bear walked in my backyard.
Yeah, that's no good.
So I will say, if I may, I've gone to William Patterson on Saturdays. They do have that where you can either William Patterson or Montclair.
Yep.
I would also, again, partner Will Patterson. They usually have PD that everybody can do sometime on the weekend
But they really,
or
that's
the
cool.
evening.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. So let's move on to reports. I'll start with mine. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I hope that everyone was able to enjoy the spring break, since it's a time to rest, refresh, regroup before the home stretch of the school year. Unfortunately, I have a sad note to begin my report on. Sandra Sorge, HPS middle school science teacher for 19 years before retiring, passed away on April 6th. Over the years, I've attended numerous 8th grade graduations, and Mrs. Sorge's name came up consistently from student speakers as someone who supported and believed in her students, and even as an inspiration. Regarding my own interaction with her during COVID, when she was my son's teacher, I noticed how positive and upbeat she was despite the challenges that the pandemic posed to her personally and to the teachers and students alike. On behalf of the Haledon Board of Education, I send our condolences to Mrs. Sorge's family and hope that they find comfort in the memories that they have and knowing how beloved she was to our school community. Continuing on the topic of HPS teachers, I want to thank Ms. Molina and Ms. Katz for their years of dedicated service to HPS. As a member of the school's ESL staff, I'm sure that Ms. Molina has helped hundreds of our students as they learned a new language and assimilated to a new culture and way of life. Surely a most vulnerable time for our young students. That kind of support is crucial to their overall development and well-being. In the years that Ms. Katz was with us, not only did she competently teach English language arts to our middle school students, she also took on a role as one of the drama club leaders, building rapport with participating students and giving them a safe space to express themselves through music and acting. Incidentally, I was lucky enough to see the drama club's production of The Addams Family this month, and I was so impressed with their talent, with their enthusiasm, and just with the professionalism of the whole production. Both Ms. Molina and Ms. Katz will be missed at HPS, but we wish them the best in their future endeavors. Congratulations are in order for Elsa Guerrero, who is retiring from the HPS custodial staff. Thank you to Elsa for doing her part to keeping our school clean, healthy, and safe, and we wish her the best in her retirement. I also want to congratulate our own Haledon BOE Commissioner and former board president, Mr. George Guzman, on 10 years of dedicated, loyal, and fervent service on the Haledon Board of Education. Mr. Guzman's commitment to our district's students, teachers, administrators, staff, parents, and families is evident through his many achievements over the past decade to move our district forward, but most notably through his consistent engagement of and outspoken advocacy for our school community. Mr. Guzman always looks to invite all stakeholders to the table in order to bring about meaningful dialogue and effective solutions to challenges. Mr. Guzman will be recognized at the May 28th Passaic County School Board Association meeting, among other distinguished awardees. So I hope everyone here can make it to that meeting. It's the last county meeting of the school year, and the details have gone out numerous times. I think we just got one this morning to register for that. So congratulations, Mr. Guzman, and thank you for your service. Some reminders to please keep on the top of your list, board members. You should have received an email from the NJSBA, our county rep Kelly Mitchell, to complete a board self-evaluation. So that's due May 7th. And Kelly is going to use that information to facilitate our retreat, which is May 15th. And that's going to be here. And it's, you know, it's a really worthwhile activity. It's and I hope to see everybody there. In addition, you should have also received an email from Kelly regarding the superintendent evaluation, and I'm going to discuss that later during new and old business. Third, as we approach the mid-year mark, I want to remind all committee chairs that as a board, we have committed to having committee meetings at least twice a year. The Finance, Policy, Safety, and Personnel committees have already met at least once this year. So the Curriculum and Technology Committee and the Community Engagement Committee should have their first meeting within the next month or two. If there's no specific issue to address at the time of your meeting, you can simply review any pertinent topics within your committee's scope to see how our district is doing in those particular areas. Committee chairs should create a brief agenda and be prepared to report out at the next general board meeting. And you can ask Lois to help you schedule the meeting, which can be via Zoom or in person. And lastly, I want to thank Ms. Augustin for the budget presentation that she gave us tonight and for her hard work along with her team, with Mr. Walker and the administration. I'm confident that this is a good, fair, and sound budget, and that it's gonna serve our district well for the 2005-2006 school year. And that's it for me. I will pass it on now to our Chief School Administrator, Mr. Waka.
I'll be brief. Thank you, Board President. I'd like to report to the board that on June 9th, we will look to host a ceremony before the board meeting to view the mural that will be painted in honor of in remembrance of a student that we lost earlier this year. This will be an invitation-only event with board members, certain HPS employees, the child's family, and certain select students invited. I'll provide the board with more information as the date approaches. And the only other thing I have is that you'll see on the budget, you'll see on the agenda that there's been a calendar change. That's due to the contractually obligation that we give back certain days when we haven't used them for unused snow days. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Waka. And Ms. Augustin, do you have any other, do you want to report on any other items?
I can just quickly kind of note, we did meet our obligations of submitting all of our disclosures, so I'm very appreciative of everyone that worked with us in the central office. This is an important step in the governance piece of CUSAC, so we wanted to make sure that we got those in on time. And, thanks for everyone dealing with a lot of the rejections and trying to figure out what happened. And thank Lois, because she definitely followed up on that with everyone, so I appreciate that. Just another reminder about the October conference. It is coming up, and I just want to let everyone know that if you are not coming or if you have an adjustment, please let me know as soon as possible. If you are aware of when and you are, coming, or when you're not coming, or if you're deciding to come a certain amount of days, we just want to make sure that we get all of the reservations and we know exactly who is coming, and so we can get everything kind of finalized. You might have received something already regarding your accommodations, and just send it back and let us know, hey, I'm not coming, or I'm only going for 2 days, so we can make the adjustment. Yes, and also if you want to register for the event on May 28th, let me know, reach out to us and we will get everyone registered. And I just encourage everyone to attend that event. It's going to be a really great event for here at Heldon and also Manchester. I believe there's some awards going on that side.
And there's no charge to those county meetings,
No, the county.
because we're
meetings
members of
aren't.
NJSBA.
And the other thing is that the finance team did meet, like Madam President said, and we also discussed about having our meetings the day or two before the board meeting. We all kind of agree that it's beneficial when we have more time to look through the agenda thoroughly and have all our questions and everything kind of ironed out. At that meeting, really quick, we talked about the bid that occurred on April 17th, that those items are not on the agenda tonight, but it will be on the next agenda for the HVAC program, HVAC program project that which will be going on next year, 25-26, which we mentioned in the budget presentation. In addition to that, we have the security vestibule on the agenda tonight. That bid opening will be May 7th, and this is the project that we're starting now, and which will spill over to the next year. And I know a few commissioners have reached out to me to get a copy of the renderings and the drawings. And if anyone wants to see that, just let me know and I can forward those items to you. And we're also on the next maybe agenda or so, we're going to go out for RFP on all of our professional services. Those services will be auditor, architect, legal services, security services, and environmental. Every 3 years is kind of a good practice for districts to do a request for proposal for these professional services to make sure that, we're still meeting the needs of the districts and also making sure that we're following all of our purchasing requirements. And that's all I have on my report.
Thank you, Ms. Augustin. Any questions for Ms. Augustin? Okay. So let's start with personnel and management. Mr. Goodman?
Yes, Madam President, thank you. We had a personnel committee meeting before this meeting. It was attended by Mrs. Keisha Johnson, Mr. Rafi Martinez, the superintendent, as well as yourself. And We reaffirmed our commitment to ongoing fiscal responsibility. It was a very productive meeting and agenda items.
Thank you. Okay, curriculum and technology.
Just one question, because I made a mistake earlier. ESSER is different than ESSA, right? Is it
ESEA.
Right, I meant ESSA earlier when it came to.
Oh, that's what you're
Oh,
talking
the
about.
bell,
Now,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
whole
I'm like,
picture.
She's
is
on
now
top of
clear.
it. Now you get it, right?
Now I get the whole picture.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's covered by the
That's
ESSA
fine.
funds. Thank you.
job.
Thank
Okay.
you so much for everything. The committee meeting was great. And everybody understands it.
Okay, curriculum and technology, Mr. Ramadan.
Other than the future upgrades with the tech as far as the phones and the door locks, agenda items only.
Okay, that's actually security, right? That,
It's technology and also.
was that under technology? Curriculum and tech, oh. Sorry.
Part of it was.
Okay, well, okay, agenda items only. Policy and public relations, Mr. Martinez.
Agenda item.
Security and safety, Mr. Guzman.
Nothing to report.
Okay, and community engagement, Mr. Motzko.
No, it's nothing in the agenda. Nothing to report.
Okay, and finance and physical plan.
We met on Monday, a few days before this meeting. And like we discussed, looking forward to having these meetings before the actual meeting day. Give us more time to go over everything. We discussed the budget and all questions that were addressed and answered. And I think the BA spoke on everything, and I won't have to give a big explanation on everything. So agenda items.
Thank you. Okay, for state and county, Ms. Quadrado isn't here, but I mean, we already mentioned the county meeting, the last one of the school year that's coming up on May 28th. So hopefully everybody can make it. And, you know, we got a lot of emails from NJSBA, so I know it's hard to kind of filter what's really pertinent, but just pay attention, especially with everything going on right now in the state and in the federal government, pay attention to those emails and that information that's coming in, just to kind of keep abreast of everything that's going on. Okay, and then Mr. Merlino, do you have anything to report? Okay, you're on mute, but I think you said no. Okay, nothing to, I think he's saying nothing to report. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's go to the budget and let's vote on the budget. So can I have a motion to pass 7.1?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Serna,
I just want to say that the budget is only secure for 1 year. With all the training that we get as elected officials from NJSBA, we are trained to have a budget for at the minimum of 3 years. So with that being said, I'm making that.
Mr. Guzman,
Again, with the times of uncertainty, all you could do is point to your track record. And, it sounds cliche to say we're doing the best we can, this is the best we can do, but this is legit the best we can do. My vote is yes.
Mrs. Johnson,
Again, thank you. You did a great job. For this year, I think we did good, and as long as we stay responsible in the upcoming years. Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
So I'm gonna vote yes. And I do agree with Ms. Serna with the 3 year, but unfortunately without knowing what's gonna be given, it's hard to kind of create that 3rd year or 2nd year budget. But yeah, I vote yes.
Mr. Moxell,
My vote is yes.
Mr. Ramadan,
Again, we commend both at this point for doing a great job on this budget and coming up with solutions and exploring a lot of avenues. And hopefully, again, we will have a better focus going forward when it comes to the future budget. For now, yes.
And Mrs. Issa.
I agree that a 3-year budget or projecting is a good idea and it's a best practice. And I think, as Mr. Martinez said, you can't really do that when you don't have the state numbers or the federal numbers, but I'm confident that that you, Ms. Augustin, and the administration are being proactive and doing everything you can, starting now and starting even before, to make sure that we're being responsible. And I, encourage the board members to ask questions and stay on top of things, and my vote is yes.
Thank you. Budget pass.
Okay, great. And I think we had some really good discussions, some of them were heated, but we had some good discussions around this budget, and it's, it's all part of the course, this isn't, it's important, and it's good to have these discussions, and it's good for the public to weigh in, and, it's all for being more informed and being involved and engaged and making the best decisions and the best choices possible.
Madam President,
Yes.
I don't want to be that person that talks and then the public only gets 3 minutes, but I just want to say, it's okay to agree to disagree. We're not always all going to agree. I just want to make that very clear. Mrs. Augustin, I think you've opened your doors to every board member to come see you, sit down, go over the budget. If they have any suggestions, does that still remain? Did that change?
I mean, this is public information, so
Correct.
anyone could ask details of it, yeah.
And it's okay to disagree as long as we have to make sure that we're one body, we're one board. The power comes not from the president, not from one person, as a board. We are one board and we have to continue to work together. We're a team. And again, we're not always going to agree on everything, but let's continue to respect each other. Let's continue leading our school district. Very important.
I agree. Maybe when we say to do something at a meeting, we should follow through with it. Like analysis for the controlled position. Or having it shift around in another way so that we can go yes for this project. That we have plan for next year. So that the teachers don't rally and come here. You can have a plan for next year. That's what's it's actually suggested by NJSBA, and you have help from NJSBA.
But this is the budget for next year.
No, it's for, I'm saying for the second and third year.
So we have a plan for next year. It's not a budget for next year, but we have a plan, and we have a plan for, future. So, and we follow best practices, and we have to see how things unfold. And, the public has a right to come, including teachers, including residents, anybody. They have a right to come. They have a right to ask
Well,
questions. They have a right to protest if they want,
So,
you
Madam
know.
President, it sounds
Yes.
like Mrs. Serna has some concerns or some suggestions, and she should be able to bring them to the table, and for the administration to take into consideration. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As a matter of fact, in our personnel committee, I think she had whatever she's referring to. I think Mr. Walker had talked to Mrs. Johnson about that. So
I was
I just
gonna.
want to bring that up.
Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
You're in school.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, we did speak about that, the analysis, and hopefully, we will during the retreat possibly go over some of those things and further, conversation about that. It's a very good meeting, very proactive.
And we'll continue to look at things. We'll continue to look ahead. Of course, it's wise to have a plan for the future. So we will continue to do that.
It has to be practical, Madam President. If it's not practical to do a 3-year budget, it doesn't matter what the NJSBA says or what I say or what you say.
Yeah.
If it's practical, Madam BA, is that practical to do a 3-year budget? It would be nice. Can we do it?
Well, the only way we would do it is, especially if we're looking at the state aid, is just making the state aid numbers the same going forward as a flat, or just putting, right now, to me, if I was to look at the state aid numbers, I would average out the fluctuations for the last 3 years, and that's what I will project for next year, with the understanding that we will possibly get less. But my real look at, once I know what the federal does in July and August, I'll be able to respond to that better. Because then I can see the trend for the next year, what the politicians or what we're looking at. Once I know what we get in July and August from the federal government, I will be able to say, okay, this is a possibility of where we're going.
So,
Okay.
so if I may ask, Madam President, is it ideal for a school budget to be 3 years?
You can't.
No, I'm just saying, does other schools go by a 3-year thing, or because
No,
grants come in every year, right?
they come in every year, programs come and go every year.
Right.
Only thing I could possibly project is making things flat, and we know that the salaries are 4%. We know that we keep the expenditures pretty much the same, so it's all a projection. It's all a projection.
And
No,
it would
just
be
asking.
like a planned budget, right? It wouldn't be, it's not that it's a budget that's voted on for 3 years. It would be like a plan.
Right,
But
no,
that was also like the video you sent me, like the person that produced that, that was like a high-level executive member of the NJEA. It just was, posted on the school board. But we vote on, every district votes on a budget
Every year.
now annually. And,
Okay.
we could make projections, and of course, there's plans where if we have certain amount of bad numbers, moving forward, there's plan A, plan B, plan C. And that's something that, it's a very important to keep that plan confidential. We don't want to get to that point, and we're not there.
All right, just asking, I mean, that's just like, raising taxes, maybe, letting everybody know they're gonna raise taxes for the next 3 years. That's part of the budget too.
You
Think
could,
about it?
you could say that, but like, you might have
You can
you might have
expect
3
it,
new
but
board
it
members every
doesn't-
single year.
right,
Like every
right,
3 years,
exactly.
you
I'm
might
saying,
get board members. You can't really proclaim what's gonna happen. You could say, here's what we think, if you really want to put yourself out there like that, but the only vote that matters is gonna be what we do each April and May in budget season.
I just think that we just did the bare minimum with this at
Mhm.
2%, when you said that on your board, you did 4, I think Patterson is at 6. So, even though it's at 2% for just HPS, we have to consider Manchester, which is at 2.8, and the town, which is also another 2. So I know that you guys want to say that it's only 2%, but we're only thinking about the taxpayers, or are we thinking about the teachers for next year, or the students? So what my point is that we're not preparing for next year. And if we don't get anything, we're gonna do cuts, and everybody was here. You heard the word cuts, and then everybody was here. So
So,
we're not gonna prepare for that, and we're not gonna move things around or try to make things work, then we are gonna be in hot water.
so if I may ask, is it for the kids, for the parents, or for the teachers? The budget? Like you just said, we don't know what to expect. I'm just asking, like, we don't know what to expect, but is it benefiting for who? The kids, the teachers, or the
Are you
parents?
saying the 2% for this year?
No, I'm just saying in general, like, who is it benefiting? Like, you're concerned,
I
like,
don't think it's benefiting anybody, which is why I voted.
no, just a moment.
It's the bare minimum, that's what I'm saying, it's just.
I don't understand bare minimum though. I think this is, I wanna hear, no, I wanna hear this because maybe she's onto something. I wanna
You
know.
do though, you said it bare minimum.
Well, no,
It's
hold
a
on.
bare minimum.
No, bare minimum as far as services for our children, I think is a bare minimum. I feel that we could do more for our children. I feel that we can give them more clubs. I feel like that's how I personally feel. But somebody may not agree with me, that's okay.
But not this budget here. right? But we
No, I
did
feel like
say
in this
that,
budget we could do.
we did say we were slowing, watching the hiring, we just doing replacements. So I feel like, with that being said, if we are taking those steps, we'll be.
You say we're not prepared, but what I see is almost nearly 20% cut in extracurricular activities, what I saw.
It's a reduction.
Yeah, but that's still a 20% reduction.
Cut. Reduction.
20%.
Well, it's not a total cut of a program,
Right.
it's a
No.
reduction
That's what I'm saying.
in some of those services.
Mhm.
But we are planning, we don't have a budget that we don't have a 3-year budget that we're gonna vote on, but we are planning for, and next year, might be really different from
I'm
this
just,
year,
Madam
you
President, I
know?
just wanna know, is Ms. Cerno suggesting that we go up more than 2% to have more services for the children? Is that-
Well, I started out at 6. And fair negotiation would be 3. However, I know that everybody's gonna get in their feelings about the taxes, but do we have a plan without saying the word cut to, for a teacher's position or an administrative position? We have to be able to plan for the future.
So, Ms. Augustin, if I'm not mistaken, when you get the numbers in August, we're gonna start looking at, you're gonna look at how that's gonna fit in, and of course, how that plays into next year. That will give you a better idea once you have the numbers in August, but in the meantime, we're already thinking ahead.
I mean, I see it as a homeowner, it's already 6%, right? If the town's raising, school's raising, right?
County's raising.
And county raising, so it's already at 6. So if we,
Probably like 8.
yeah, so if we did 6 here, we're talking about
Yeah.
14%.
But that's just making up of the 5 years that you did raise taxes.
I mean, 5 years that nobody complained about too.
Hold on, we can't make up something that we're not behind on.
We are behind.
No.
That's why we're in hot water right now.
Well, we're not in hot water, our
We're
budget is
actually-
covered,
it's
our
covered.
budget is
money.
balanced.
Bank
Go
cap
around again with this hot water thing.
for an emergency, right?
We're definitely.
All right, I was just trying to just figure out and it's great. That's why I love the board. Everybody has an opinion
Sure.
and that's what makes it great.
I mean, I'm with you.
There is
you know,
no
I wanna-
To disagree, to agree,
Yeah,
and
We
at
already
the end,
agreed, but we already agreed.
it's the best for the kids,
Well,
the students, the
yeah.
scholars.
That's what I was
And-
saying.
That's all, I mean, yeah.
No,
Madam
listen, I
President.
agree. I'm only asking because I want to be educated too. Just because I
So
sit here,
Mr.
every day's a
Mr.
learning
Ferrer,
day.
I've been what, Mr. Farrar, I've been seeing him, City Patterson councilman for years. I got none but respect for this man. He's absolutely right.
Better
But
have.
remember, yeah, of course. But remember this though. I don't, this, we're at a public meeting. I don't want to criticize any other district, so I'm just gonna talk general. We did 0% for a couple, for several years there, right? And it's like, oh, now we gotta play catch up. I don't look at it that way. Or because another municipality had to play catch up. Maybe another municipality had to play catch up because other municipalities are doing tons of tax abatements and all this other stuff. Our district, our municipality has not engaged in that. You know what I mean? So it's like, to me personally, it's comparing apples to oranges. You know what I mean? We were in a position where we were able to do that. Not only did we do the 0%, but we were putting money away. We're putting money away so we could do the expansion of the school that needed to get done. We couldn't
Before,
raise tax. We couldn't
before
raise taxes to put that expansion on the school. We didn't do that. We put money away. We were trying to be fiscally responsible. And what you're suggesting is that now this school district must pay the price because we're being fiscally responsible. So now the state's gonna be like, oh, hell, you've been fiscally responsible, so we're gonna cut back on your money. That's not school district. What we should be doing is working together, being united. Not only us, but with our teachers, our parents, and getting down the track and finding out where our money is so we could get every single penny that our children deserve.
But you don't understand that the teachers were here last meeting
Yeah.
because of the word cut on the 12th meeting?
But they also
So
did
therefore,
realize
they're
what was going on.
nervous because of what is happening already.
No, I think they're nervous because we have to, in my personal opinion, because us as the leaders of the school district, it's important what we speak about here at a public meeting. If we start talking about cuts, and I don't think anybody here, including yourself, wants to see anybody laid off. I want to make that very clear. I feel that if we say certain words, yes, as teachers, as a union, they're going to be concerned. They're going to come here. They're going to want to find out where do we stand as a board. You know what I mean? And I think that's where the issue lies. So if we stand in a position where we're willing to just cut anybody, yeah, they're gonna come here as they should. You know, if we're in a position where, listen, this board is gonna remain united. We're gonna continue fighting for funds at the federal level, at the state level, to continue fully funding the school for our children, for our teachers, for our entire school district. That's the best thing to do. That's what we've been doing for over 10 years, and we've been okay. What's changing now?
And, you know, I
mean, that's just my personal opinion. This is not a knock on nobody. This is just my personal opinion.
And my personal opinion is I have been in business for over 30 years and I look at the budget and I don't agree, which is why I say no.
Well,
Can
it-
I also, can I say something quickly without prolonging this issue or situation? I think I kind of relate to some of the things that's happening. We're not saying when we keep saying just 2%, we're not thinking about what other raises. There's other like tax levies coming through to the taxpayers, including again, if it's just this, nobody's going to see an issue establishing this. But we're going to get hit from, let's say, 2% here, 3% there for the county, or 6% there, 3% here, and 4. Like in other words, the levies is not just happening from one place only to make it. Yes, it's nothing. It's okay, but we're gonna get taxed from probably Manchester, the same thing. The county's gonna charge us. We're gonna have to pay levy taxes from all over. That's over, the accumulation is not just 2%, just thinking about our own 2%. It's like overall, probably for this year, we might be hit for more than 10% altogether from the town, inclusively from everywhere. So that's what I think is the picture, is not just strictly to the 2% that's only dedicated to HPS. If it's just the only 2% increase dedicated to this, from the residents just to this institution, or just the HPS, I don't think anybody has a problem even making it 4%. But again, we're going to pay 2% here. We're going to pay Manchester there. We're going to pay the county here, police, fire department, etc. So there's a lot of increases. It's not coming from one angle. If it's a one angle, it's understandable. It's nobody going to see an issue in establishing that. And it is for the benefit of everybody, the benefit of the community. We have no problem with that. But again, the hit is coming from all angles. It's not limited to just 2%, just our 2% HPS. That's what we're saying.
And
Understood.
President, we had a couple good years too, where the county stayed at 0, the town was like 1 something, we were at 0, things were good, you know? The only suggestion, if I made to my fellow colleague, is this. I see other folks bring up suggestions. They'll say like, the FERS brought up some great suggestions. I encourage you to do the same. If you have any suggestions, if you think the budget is that bad, please, the BA has said, come see me.
We've already had our discussion.
Okay.
It's whether you guys agree.
I mean, that's what I had.
Yep.
Any
Well,
suggestions, bring it to us.
so the budget has passed. We haven't had to let go of anybody. We've done, we've made some reductions in services and programs, but it's, not detrimental. We haven't removed anything. And we are going to continue. I know that Ms. Augustin and Mr. Walker are going to continue to be very proactive. And we're gonna project ahead as much as we can, as much as makes sense, as much as is practical, and as much as we can. And, let's have faith that this budget is going to, do what it's supposed to do. And we are gonna keep working on it and, being responsible. Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Martinez.
If we've looked at our utility companies, look at the news, effective June 1st, our utility companies are going anywhere between 17 to 20% up.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
They did not ask anyone permission for that.
Not at all.
Okay. Now, I understand that our town's duty, is to make sure that our kids get an education. So if our town has to raise taxes, not 17%, obviously, to make sure our kids go to school, then we'll vote on it accordingly. Now, I remember what I just said, vote on it accordingly, versus like the utility companies, they're just taking it from you. So I'm grateful that we have a board that we can agree to disagree.
Right.
And, agreeing to disagree also opens up better understandings. So,
And planning so that we can mitigate cuts or mitigate, things that are detrimental as much as possible. Nobody wants to raise taxes, nobody wants to cut, of course not. We have to plan so that we can mitigate that as much as possible. But in the end, we have to balance a budget. We're good this year. And we're gonna keep our eye on the next year and the following year.
Madam President, I just want to bring something to the board's attention. remember, we also have an option, especially for critical situations, to work with the town to try to do a referendum. Let the taxpayers decide on certain issues if it comes out to it. They can vote for it. They can say they can vote it up, they can vote it down. So that's also an option, that another tool that we have in our toolbox. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, we just start taking our own garbage to the DPW. And gotta reduce their taxes, right?
I'll leave mine on the Christmas.
Carlos drives
I'm
around.
glad you said it.
All right, folks.
Thanks for volunteering, Carlos.
So let's see, where,
Madam President, I'd like to move items 8.1 through 8.19.
So moved.
Personnel matter.
okay. Moved by Mr. Guzman, seconded by Mr. Martinez. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Serna,
No to 8.9, yes, everything else.
Mr. Guzman,
I do have a question about an item here, but I'll talk about it. I'll ask offline. As far as 8.9, that's hanging with Hilton PD. That's an event. That's something that we have done for years. They named it Hilton PD now, but we used to always do something called TGIF with the kids on Friday nights, where the school district pays for the chaperones. That's something that's been going. That's embedded in Hilton history, where our police officers come and they interact with the children, parents, whoever. It's a wonderful event, and I support it 150%. And I'm going to double down on this and say it's extremely important for our children to have a healthy relationship with the police officers that are here to serve them. Okay, so that's something that I don't take lightly. And my vote is yes.
thank you. Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Matzo,
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan,
Yes.
and Mrs. Issa.
I did have a question about 8.15. So that contract for this sub, so we pay that contract just to have the accessibility to the subs, but when we get subs, we have to pay them directly, right? That's an additional cost, correct?
We have a substitute service to cover, I guess, areas that we can't cover, but we do employ direct subs too. So
Okay,
we have a
so,
little bit of both.
okay, so when we get the subs from the contract that we have, do we pay this annual fee to have the accessibility and then also pay those subs?
So if
Directly?
we have direct subs that are our employees, and then we have this sub company.
I see what you're saying. She's saying
Yeah,
this,
so really getting
we're
paid for
paying
something.
13,000 under number 5, $13,000, $333 per year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but your question is, we're paying that fee, but when we hire the sub, do we also have to pay them the
From that
$150?
agency?
If they're hired by NORAS, the company, we're paying the company, but
Got
then
it.
we have direct subs.
Okay, got it.
So two different.
Okay, so yeah, my vote is yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so, curriculum and technology, Mr. Ramadan.
Motion to move the 9.1 to 9:15.
Second,
Moved by Mr. Ramadan, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call,
And with
please.
the noted exceptions for 9.3 through 9.10, just to have the board members abstain.
Oh, yeah, I have it here. I have it.
Okay.
Okay, so there's some extensions that, hopefully everybody's aware of. but I'm
yep,
looking at.
yep.
Mrs. Serna,
Abstain from 9.3, yes, everything.
okay. Mr. Guzman? You abstaining from
Yeah, I'm
9.6?
I'm going to abstain from 9.6.
Mhm.
And let's see here. My vote is yes for it.
Okay, Mrs. Johnson?
Abstain from 9.8, yes, everything else.
Mhm. Mr. Martinez?
Yes, and abstain from 9.6. I'm sorry,
9.9.
9.9.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you. Mr. Matzo?
Yes, my vote is yes, abstain from 9.10.
Okay. Mr. Ramadan?
No, there's no abstention. I'm not attending at this point. I can't.
Is your vote yes?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Thank you. And Mrs. Issa,
Abstain from 9.7 and yes to the rest.
thank you.
Okay, security and safety, Mr. Guzman?
Yes, I want to move 11.1, but I just want to touch on it just for a second so the public is aware exactly what it is. So this is a memorandum of understanding between law enforcement and school officials in the state of New Jersey. Without this memorandum of understanding, law enforcement is just going to do what law enforcement does. If they have a right to come into school, they're just going to come out and go into school. If they have a right to arrest somebody, they're just going to come in and arrest somebody. However, this memorandum of understanding between law enforcement and school officials, Mr. Walker signs it and Chief of Police signs it, and they come to a mutual understanding agreement, such as if an arrest is going to take place in the school, where does it take place at? It will take place, it's supposed to take place in the principal's office. Officers that are not, plainclothes officers should come, have an unmarked unit outside, so as to not disturb the school. Obviously, if it's something that's exigent, they're gonna do what they have to do. But protocol for as when you bring a canine into the school, not the therapy dog, by the way, not canine Nash, I'm talking about drug dog, and things of that nature. So that's what the memorandum of understanding to law enforcement and school officials is. And again, I move it.
Thank
Second.
you. Okay, so moved by Mr. Guzman, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call, please. Martinez, yeah, sorry.
Mrs. Serna? Mr. Guzman?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Moxell?
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan?
Yes.
And Mrs. Issa?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and then finance, Mr. Motzko.
Yes, I'd like to move item 13.1 through 13.26.
Moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Martinez. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Serna?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Guzman?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes. I have a question. 13 point, what is that? The doctors, 13 point.
Fees.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For the students.
These are for the students' evaluations.
Oh, okay, okay, yes, yes.
Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Moxell?
Yes.
Mr. Guzman, there was an abstention. Did you abstain from 13.7?
I guess I will abstain from 13.7.
Oh.
Give me a second, Mr. Moxell. Okay. Mr. Ramadan
Yes.
and Mrs. Issa?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
So moving on to new and old business, I do have one item, but if anybody else has anything else first. Yep.
It has nothing to do with the school district, but it was brought up from the public portion about the carnival. The carnival is ran by the PBA, the Hilton PBA local. That would have been possible without the cooperation of Mayor Michael Johnson, the Hilton Municipal Council, because for many years through ordinance, it was prohibited to have a carnival in this town. And they changed the ordinance to allow the carnival to carnivals and certain things like that to happen in our town, which is a beautiful thing. And I just want to point out that our officers are out there right now working that carnival for the next 5 days for free, volunteering. I want to put that out.
Thanks, work.
And so I just want to, I'm very proud of our officers for that initiative.
George, it's a row this year?
Excuse me?
It's a road street.
Road Street for the next 5 days.
Starting tomorrow,
We
right?
encourage the community to come.
Today, the 30th.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Let's finish up.
They have good food.
Right.
So encourage everyone to be there. And yeah, all the PBA members are volunteering their time for the next 5 days to make that happen, as they've done since they started the carnival 2 years ago. And I just want to, it's very important. The pillars of 21st century policing, community policing. President Barack Obama signed off on that back in 2015. It was embraced again by President Donald Trump. Community policing is part of it. And that's what Sergeant Funes and all and detectives that they do. Coffee with a cop, ice cream with a cop, color with a cop, all these events. I thank them for their work. And I just want to point that out to them. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's awesome that they volunteer at the carnival. I didn't know that. Any other new or old business? Okay, so I'm going to just talk very generally about the chief school administrator, superintendent evaluation, the process and the timeline. First off, I want to reiterate how confidential this process is. It's one of the few times that I will, as the board president, email all of the board members via blind copy so that we don't have a quorum, because it's very confidential. But I'm just gonna go through some deadlines, some the timeline and some steps. And then, I'll follow up with an email so that you have it all in writing. So the board president of every school board has to submit one superintendent evaluation for their district by June 30th. So I'm asking all board members to complete their individual evaluations by Friday, May 30th. That's more than 4 weeks from now. So it is a lengthy process, but that's plenty of time for you to do that. That gives me about 1 week, once you submit all of your individual evaluations, to go through all the responses, compile them, and draft summaries, draft a summarized response to each question that captures the majority consensus. That's what the school board, the superintendent evaluation is. It will reflect the majority consensus to each question. So I suggest you start it as soon as possible. And if you have any questions, especially the new board members, since this will be your first time doing it, please feel free to reach out to me. It is time consuming, so please give yourself enough time. After I receive after I gather all the individual evaluations, and by the way, I don't see who wrote what, I just get all the comments. I don't, see which comment is attributed to what board member. So that once I do that, I compile it, I do one draft, I'll send it to each board member to review, and then at our June 9th meeting, we'll have an executive session without Mr. Waka present, and we'll go through the draft evaluation. We'll go through all the responses, we'll discuss any minority opinions, and then we'll make any necessary adjustments, and then we'll finalize one final evaluation to present to Mr. Waka at the next board meeting. So that's where we run into a little bit of a problem. Our next board meeting after June 9th is June 30th, which is when this is due to be submitted by. So I want to request if it would be possible to move that June 30th meeting to June 25th, to Wednesday, June 25th. June 30th is a Monday. So if we can move that to June 25th, we can have our executive session with Mr. Waka, go through the evaluation. He has a few days to look it over.
8th grade graduation.
On June 25th.
Why is it saying that? What's that for? I'm seeing HPS staff calendar, June 25th, 8th grade graduation. Is that right, Bill?
We can also, instead of having it due by May 30th, we can have it due earlier, so that way by May 30th, we can submit it.
I don't know if that's enough time to give everybody.
It's literally a month and a half.
Yeah, but I need time. So I need time to go through everything, and that's time consuming. So if you.
But Bill, you got that for the date on your calendar?
I'm sorry.
You guys would have to have that done like within 2 weeks
That's what
to
I'm
give
saying,
me a week to,
By, what was it, May 15th?
If you present it on June 30th, you satisfied the timeline. even though it won't be signed, because you'll give Mr. Waka a few days to look at it
Yeah.
and make any rebuttals, but you'll satisfy the timeline because the board has presented it by June
It's
30th.
right there, right?
Okay.
Okay, so because what I want to make sure is that Mr. Waka has a few days to look it over before we have to submit it, because that's not really fair.
No,
So
no, the submitting is the presentation to the superintendent by June 30th. That's all you have to do.
okay, all right, so
You'll
then,
satisfy it.
all right, so then in that case, we can keep it at June 30th. We'll keep it at June 30th. We'll present you, we'll go through the evaluation with you in executive session on June 30th, and then you'll have, a few days. We'll ask you to maybe like within four or 5 days to, get, yeah, I mean, you can ask, see, the thing is though, like, if he wants to ask any questions, then Mr. Merlino, if he wants to ask any questions, we don't have another meeting until like July.
I'm not
It's
gonna-
you're still fine. You're still in compliance. It's just the board has to complete its part of the evaluation by June 30th, and you would have done that. His questions are outside of that timeline.
Okay, all right, great. So if you do have questions or concerns that you want to discuss with the whole board in an executive session in our July meeting, then we can hold
works.
off. And if not, if you're good with it, you sign it and I'll submit it.
Very fair.
Okay. So, okay, well, good then. We don't have to change anything. Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Merlino. Okay, so let's see. So yeah, so then that's it. Once, Mr. Waka signs the evaluation, I'll submit it and we've done our evaluation. Let's see if there was anything else that I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, so this is important. Please make sure to attend every meeting from now until then in person. Remember that we have a policy now that if you attend virtually, you may not participate in an executive session. So if you attend either the June 9th meeting or the June 30th meeting, you will not be able to participate in the discussion of the evaluation. So, please attend every meeting and in person. And I think that's it. So tomorrow I will send you these dates and guidelines just so that you have it in writing. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. And again, just, I strongly suggest doing it sooner rather than later so that you have enough time to, go through it and, answer it with calm. That's it. Any questions on that? Okay, so let's open the floor to the public one more time. And yes, so can I have a motion to open the floor?
So, second.
Moved by Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Motzko, all in favor? Okay, so the floor is open to the public. Anybody online, Mr. Miller?
Motion to close?
Okay, all right, so motion moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Martinez, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we do have a few matters in executive session. Mr. Waka, you may leave after the
The
first.
first one, before I sent it to the board, I think the board even requested to get the backup. So if the board has any questions about either of the HIVs, I'm happy to stay and talk about that, but.
Does anybody want to discuss the student matters in executive session? We good? Okay, then, so we still have an executive session with Mr. Merlino, but you will be free to go once we adjourn, once we go into executive session. So, can I have, and this should take, I don't know, Mr. Merlino, maybe like 15 minutes.
Maybe like 10 minutes. It should be pretty quick.
Okay, so, and no action will be taken, correct?
No action.
Tonight?
No
Okay.
action.
So can I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Martinez. We have to do roll call, right, for executive session?
Yes.
Okay, so roll call, please.
Mrs. Serna?
Yes.
Mr. Guzman?
Thank you.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson? Yes. Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Moxo?
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan?
Yep, Okay, so, Bill, just let us know when we can, get back on. We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, can I have okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So move.
Go Wildcats.
Moved by
Second by
Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Matsko. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, good night. Work on
Good
your
night,
superintendent
everybody.
evaluations and work on your board evaluations, please.